Hi folks, Dr. Hopewell, Dr. Lynn back again for Methodology Section 3.0 How To. We're into the data collection section, and this is really, again, it really helps get a real clear plan for you in your head of how this study is going to be pulled off here in the next semester. Okay, so we've talked at length about the fact that this semester is planning, and proposing your study, and that in the next semester we will get into actually implementing the study. So a clear plan is always a good thing, and so in the data collection section we get into kind of the roadmap of what this is going to look like.
Okay, so the first paragraph under data collection, you're really wanting the reader to identify with who are the participants going to be and what are the basic things that I'm asking them to do as a part of the study. And so this student clearly identifies their fifth grade learning disabled students, and then she identifies clearly participants will be asked to, and she focuses on the intervention that she's going to be implementing, using graphic organizers, and that the participants will also be engaged in discussions about text. One critical thing too is she's acknowledging here that as a teacher and as a researcher, it's important that she creates a comfortable environment where they can be fully engaged and participate fully, and that she'll be respectful of that as well. The next paragraph goes on, and this is where it really starts becoming similar to a lesson plan. You identify the time frame. Very typically in ED 750, our students start their studies up in early to mid-February, and then the data collection takes place sometime, generally at minimum a 2-week period, typically, most often a 4-week period, and most often not any longer than a 6-week period. It's just not realistic to fit it into the semester any longer. So your study will take place sometime in February and wrap up sometime in March, because you'll be spending April in analyzing your data and writing your report. The student identifies in this statement that during that time frame she'll be collecting both quantitative and qualitative data, which makes this a mixed research study, and she clearly identifies what types of tools she's going to be using that fit each of those particular forms of data. The next thing, the next paragraph talks about, acknowledges the importance of minimizing risks because you're involving human research subjects. And a phrase that's highlighted in yellow says, there are minimal risks associated with participation in this study, which are typical of involvement in standard classroom practices. That's a research phrase that's very commonly used in educational research, so you're definitely encouraged to use that phrase as it is, and not worry about if you're plagiarizing. It's just a good acknowledgement. And also in this section, she indicates that the subjects have the opportunity to withdraw from the study at any time. And then she indicates, so what if they do withdraw? If they withdraw at some point in time after the study started, data collection will cease for the student at the point of withdrawal from the study. That's really important to clarify as well. Dr. Hopewell, anything you want to add or clarify about to this point?
No, I think that at some point you can kind of feel like this is getting kind of tedious, but that's okay. Go ahead and go through the minute details of the study. It's going to not only provide a good framework for you, but it also kind of helps cover all your bases in terms of legal type situations that you need to cover for your study, so that if at any point in the future, and we don't at all anticipate that anything would go wrong with your study. I have not had students have anything go wrong with their study, but as researchers, we want to make sure that we do cover all the bases, and so that's what we're trying to do, is help you go through the motions, go through the processes of writing up a legitimate research study.
Okay, basically you're learning how to apply research protocol. and you're wanting the reader, anyone that reads this, to say, oh, this person understands good educational research and is planning to implement a study that abides by research protocol. Now, that timeline, the student now starts breaking down who, what, where, when, all of those basic questions. So she starts out during the first week of the study. One of the things she clearly indicates is what she's going to do. She's going to conduct interview with each participant during the first week, and that interview is clearly linked to answering research question number 2 of her study. So that goes right back to those research questions that she listed at the beginning of the methodology. You want to clearly link what you do with the question that you're going to answer. And then she also indicates very, very well below that she's going to utilize an interview questionnaire. That's her data collection instrument, and she refers to it as C Appendix C. Again, thinking in progression. C, that's the first week of the study. It's what she does after the principal consent, after the parent and student consent, and that's why it becomes, this particular instrument becomes Appendix C. So that's basically what you want to do throughout your entire data collection section. You want to say, first week I plan to do this, second week I plan to do that, and you want to clearly link what you're doing with the question that you're going to answer and the form of data and the data collection instruments you'll use to answer those questions. Dr. Hopewell, anything you want to add?
This will also help clarify for you some of the things that we talked about in the triangulation matrix, and drawing that clear line between what information you're going to collect to answer a question and how you're going to, what are the sources of that information. So you might want to refer back to that triangulation matrix at this point.
Okay, scrolling down to page 7, the last page of the methodology as it's written to this point. The last paragraph is also very important. Again, research protocol. You are clearly stating what your plan is to assure that the data is treated with confidentiality and that the participants' anonymity is also protected. So again, here's some phrases, and it's okay to go ahead and use this wording if that's exactly what you plan to do. If you plan to do something else, you're just basically assuring that you're not going to lay this data out on your desk where the janitor can read it. You're not going to be sharing it. It's not accessible on the internet to anyone, and that you really are going to be respectful that the participants' identity will not be revealed, that they will remain anonymous.
And I'll just point out one minor technicality, something that you'll want to think about. The difference between confidentiality and anonymity. So these students, when you are going to actually protect their confidentiality. Anonymity is data that's collected that has no one knows where the information came from. It's totally anonymous. In this case, with working with your students, for the most part, this is going to be information that you, as the researcher, know which students answered or which students submitted certain things. That's called, actually, you're safeguarding their confidentiality. So that's just a minor distinction, but something that it's important to keep in mind.
Yeah, that was really important. Thank you. The last 2 sections, the subsections that you see, data analysis and finding and implications, we clearly stated here on this paper that they will be added at the beginning of ED 750 in the spring. So you don't need to be thinking about that. You can be thinking about it at this point, but you're going to be reading and learning more about that at the beginning of the spring semester, and you'll add those sections to the methodology later. The other thing that I want to emphasize is those appendices that you referred to earlier, like your interview questionnaire, or if you're going to be using some kind of assessment tool. Those are all things that are going to be added also during ED 750. You do not write those during this semester. The only 2 appendices that you'll write during ED 630 this semester is your principal consent, your parent and student consent and assent. So you're nearing the finish line, and you're doing well. So keep hanging in there, and we look forward to giving you some feedback to help you progress.